Here's my tutorial for putting together my explosion box based on the file that I have put in Cricut Community. So this is the base of my card. This is the largest square in the file. The corners I'm going to cover with these numbers. Now this is for a 50th birthday. I thought it would be fun to outline the fact that it was the 50th birthday on each corner. There's nothing like a subtle reminder of how old you're getting. I'm just going to tack these down to begin with. So I've carefully folded and burnished my score lines. These corners, when this comes up, these fold inwards. So you just want to sort of pinch this. There's a fold line on the base layer, but I figured just in case my placement was a little bit off, I was going to kind of pinch these into place like so. You just want a bit of a mountain fold here. Make sure that your corners fold up nicely. And when they do, and when it's closed, it should look something like, well, we'll have the other boxes to keep them in place, but be something like this when it's closed. I'm just going to put my matte layer on the inside here. So I'm just going to glue those down and then we'll get to the next step. So next we're going to put together the lid. So I embossed the top layer and then I have a mat underneath, and all of this will get adhered to the top or the lid of the box. I find it easier to put all these pieces on the lid of the box while it's still flat. It's just easier to get your measurements right. I'm just going to glue these down and then we can glue our lid together. Now that I've glued my mats and layers on the top of my lid, I'm just going to fold down. So make sure that all your score lines are folded down and burnished properly, and your little tabs are folded on the inside. And what you're going to do is put a little bit of glue on the tab. I like a reinforced lid for this type of box. This makes a sturdy top. Okay, so you want to fold the tab down so that your corner forms a nice 90-degree angle. Make sure that the horizontal and the vertical lines are on your mat. That forms a nice right angle where the sides meet. So we're going to do that for all 4 corners. And then just put glue on the flap and turn it inwards. And then make sure that it adheres to the inside of the box. And you do that with all 4 sides. So once your lid is all glued together, it's a good idea to take your base, hold it up into position, and just make sure that it all fits. So next we're going to work on the exterior of your box. So when your box is closed, this is what you'll be looking at. The panels that you need to decorate are on each side. This is the bottom of your box. So this is my first layer, and then I've embossed a second layer. You could actually deboss with your maker if you don't have a Cuttlebug or some kind of embossing machine. So here are the shaker pieces, or the pieces to create the shaker elements that I'm going to use to adorn the outside of my explosion box. So let's start with the margarita. What I've already done is I've taken 2 layers of craft foam and adhered them together. I've adhered my 2 layers of craft foam to cardstock. In this case, I'm using foiled cardstock. And what I'm doing is just making sure that my craft foam fits, because craft foam has a little bit more give than cardstock, so you want to make sure that it fits nicely. And you kind of just sort of push it into shape. So here's my piece of acetate. I'm going to put glue on the outline of the glass, and then adhere the top. And I use my shape. There's a lot of glue on my shape. Once it's dried sufficiently, I'm going to just rub that glue off with a cloth. I've cut out a piece of lime colored cardstock that will form my little margarita beverage, and I'm just going to center it as best I can and make sure that these dry thoroughly before you put your shaker together. Basically, you do the exact same thing with all three shaker elements. So put glue on your craft foam. Glue one of your pieces of cardstock to your piece of foam. Make sure you shape. The foam has a little bit of give to it, so make sure that it's following the shape of your cardstock. Glue your foam piece to the base of your shaker card. I thought it'd be fun to put the center of the 0 as a bit of an obstacle for your shaker elements to navigate around when you shake it. So instead of just laying it on the top acetate so that it moves freely, they actually have to move around the center of your 0. So we're just going to position it as best you can in the center. So it's basically the same process for all three shaker elements. They just have different shapes. For my margarita, my shaker elements are these little plastic cubes that I got at a party decoration store years ago. The finishing of the shaker elements go together the same way. So what you want to do is just carefully move your shaker elements away from the edges. You don't want them to get stuck on the glue. Exercise a little more self-control than I have. As soon as I put them together, I feel the need to shake them. Don't do that. And then put a little bit, I've got art glitter glue here. I'm just putting it around the perimeter of the craft foam, my piece of acetate. Putting glue on my top decorative layer. Put that on top. Position it so that it's exactly flush with the edges. The center of my 0. Stick that on top. And without moving it too much, just let it dry. And there we have them as shaker elements for the outside of our explosion box. The second layer of the explosion box uses almost an entire sheet of 12 by 12 paper. You have to fold and burnish the score lines as follows. So you pull the panel downwards and then fold it over on one side, you'll see a tab on your right hand side that gets folded under, and a triangle at the top that gets folded down. Now this creates little pockets on each panel in which you can put either a picture or have people write notes or signatures or even little stories. So you want to do that on all four sides. So we have this shape. So what I'm going to do is run a very thin bead of glue at the bottom of the panel and more glue on the little tab. Fold the tab under. You want to make sure it's flush with the edge of that panel. And then fold your triangle down. I thought the use of double-sided paper was good for this. You also use patterned paper on one side and solid on the other. I think that would be a really nice effect as well. And then we have our little words to go inside, and you do that for all four panels. So this is the final, or the third layer of the box. We're going to work on the birthday cake. I've already put 2 layers together. And there's a little doily at the bottom. All 3 layers of the birthday cake go together the same way. So we're just going to put the middle layer together. So there's a tab on one end, you fold down the tab. And then there's these funny little trapezoid shapes on each side. You just want to fold them down on the score line. And you're going to notice some little ridges here. So if you have a bone folder, or even if you have just your Cricut tool, you just sort of try to minimize them. So when all your tabs have been folded downwards, including the one at the end, you want to put a little bit of glue on the tab that's at the end and adhere it to the other end of that strip of paper. So I have 3 circles. One of them is decorative for the top, and the 2 others are to form the actual shape. Put glue on the perimeter of my first circle, and then just push it down to the bottom of that shape that I've created. So what you want it to do is, you want it to adhere to all those little tabs that are pointing towards the center of your circle. And once your glue is dried a little bit, you may want to just sort of minimize some of the bumps that are made. Next, put glue on your tabs and adhere your circle to your shape. You're trying to get the edge of your circle along the score line that's formed when you fold your tabs over. I go in with my tweezers and I hold those tabs until the glue takes a little bit, and then move on to the next series. And then flip your piece over, take your decorative piece and glue it to the top of your cake. And then take your little edging. I put a little bit of glue and find where that seam is. Position your little border where the blue piece and the white piece meet at the top. And just keep going around like that, adding glue onto your border, and then continue until it overlaps just a small little bit, and then snip off the excess. The exact same procedure for all three of the tiers. You glue the tiers together, so stack them up as centered as possible. And there we have your three-tiered cake. So this is the rind of my little lime, and I wanted it to be a little bit shiny, give it a little bit more interest. So I'm using a product called Glossy Accent, and I'm just spreading it, much like you would glue, along the entire piece. There's two things to know about Glossy Accent. First thing is you don't want any bubbles, because that's not good. And the second thing is be patient, let it dry. This is the third and final layer of my box card. And then this is the little doily for my center piece, which is the cake. I have two pieces of cardstock that are going to go here, and two pieces that are going to go here. And two of them have little holes at the top, and that's so that I can put in my note cards. And the two others reserve little surprises, which is what we're going to work on next. So for the top layer, I decided to go with a couple little pop-up elements to make it a little bit more fun. So you have a rectangle with a score line in the center, just fold and burnish. You have your happy birthday sentiment. It has two different pieces of cardstock on a backing. And then you have these two little pieces that are part of the mechanism. So this one's another rectangle folded in half. And this piece, first you want to fold backwards on the center, forward on the diagonal, forward on the diagonal, and then with your index finger, while holding the exterior part of the card, you want to fold it so that the interior goes inwards to form a triangle. And if you notice, when you're looking at it from the side, you have a triangle in your left hand, and you have a right angle triangle on the top layer. You're going to put glue on the top part of the mechanism beyond the score line, and then flip it over and do the exact same thing. Glue on the top score line. And then you are going to take your little rectangle with it open towards your left hand and just clamp it over. So what you have is you have this panel here that's glued down, and then if you flip it over again, it's the same panel but on the other side, this panel here that's glued down. Now That's your pop-up mechanism. With your little note card, approximately centered on the horizontal and placed so that the center is against the middle of the card. Okay. And then you're just going to put glue on you just want to put glue on the bottom triangle and close your card. Make sure your glue takes. And then you want to put glue on the upper triangle on the other side. Fold your card. And then trying to center it as best I can over the square of my mechanism. Let's see if we can get it centered. And so here we have the pop-up element for the center of the card. For the second mechanism, we have a rectangle with the score line in the center. And then we have a 4-panel card that I've decorated with stars and the word celebrate. The celebrate is adhesive vinyl and the stars are just the cardstock that I've used within the card. And the mechanism is a very, very simple and common mechanism called the twist and pop mechanism. What you want to do is fold on all the score lines, and then push the center score line inwards as you're folding and creating a little triangle at the top. Okay, so you have one side that has a slant to it and one side that has a full rectangle. You're going to put glue on both triangles, just the triangular part. And then place it approximately in the center height-wise of the card and against the score line. I'm just making the little booklets for everybody to sign the card. Since there's more than one person that's going to be signing this card. So these are the little closures that I'm going to use for my little booklets. Now I have these little magnets. I'm going to use 8 of them. With some scrap cardstock from parts of the card that I've made, I've cut out circles and put it on top with double-sided tape, taped it to the top of the magnets. And then I'm adhering the magnet to the little strap I'm going to use to close the card. So I'm going to position it approximately centered. I'm going to put glue on the back and fold it over. And then I'm going to take another one of my magnets. I've already put the red line tape in the back of my magnet. I'm going to match it with the other magnet and then close the card. I'm going to do that with all of my little booklets, my little navy blue booklets. I'm going to grab the final layer and we're going to glue our little booklets on each side. Now I wanted to make sure that the ones that have the pages in them are directly across from one another, and then the other two are just, and I'm going to glue them down the way they are sitting right now. I'm going to glue my embellishments on the external part of my card. So this is the outside of the card. You'll never see it in this format because this is the bottom of the card, and these parts will remain flat when open, but will be hidden when you close the box. So I've dry fit my images pretty much where I want them. What I need to keep in mind is that the lid comes down approximately 3/4 of an inch. So I don't want my embellishments interfering with the closing of the lid. I just put glue on the back of them, a nice generous amount. So it's one of those things that you realize as you're putting something together. It all sounded like a great idea in your head, and then when you go to put something together you realize, okay, that's not going to work. So because of all of my sweet little embellishments, it creates a little bit of a divot in my main part, and although I'm going to be putting lots of layers on top of it, I wasn't satisfied with that feeling that it's not going to be solid enough. So what I did is I cut another piece of cardstock, and I have 2 layers of foam tape. So this way it's going to make it a little more sturdy and support it a little bit better. So I'm just going to position this as best I can in the center. And while it still has a height difference with its sides, it doesn't feel as flimsy. Next, we're going to put the layer with my little cards, and I added a little hole in the corner, and I had some scrap pieces of faux leather that I thought picked up a little bit of the blues. So I'm putting glue on the center panel and gluing it in the middle. Hopefully, what's the middle of my card. I'm going to do the same with the next layer. So this is the layer with all my booklets and my pop-up elements. And I'm just going to put glue on the center panel and adhere it to the center of my card. And next I'm going to glue in the pieces of the birthday cake. I've put double-sided foam tape on the bottom of my cake, on the smallest tier, and I'll grab the middle-sized tier and the smallest, and what I'm trying to do is line up where the join is for the 2 tiers. So there's a join here and there's a join there, and I'm lining them up so that they're pretty much together, and making sure that my tier is centered, more or less centered, over the larger tier. And then you want to center the middle layer as best you can over the largest layer of your cake. Add foam tape to the bottom layer and tape it to the center of your card. My next step is to adorn my birthday cake with the flowers. And what I plan on doing is just put a little tiny bit of glue at the base of every single one of these flowers and have it fall from the top of the cake downwards, obviously, and hopefully hide a little bit of the join of the 3 tiers of the cake, which is why I put them all pretty much in the same area, so it would be easier for the flowers to cascade in a downward direction all over that area. And for my flowers, the flowers are in the file. If you have a mouse pad or something like that, that works just as well. You can use a very small ballpoint pen, but with the ink removed, or I have one of these. It's from a cake decorating kit, and you just roll it in the center of your flower, making your circles a little bit bigger each time. It gives a little bit of dimension to your flower. And then I grab some Nouveau drops and put some in the center of my flower. And just put a little bit in the center of my flower, like that. So all my flowers are already done. I did them earlier. And I'm just going to glue them onto my cake. Wish me luck.